Let's kick off this holiday weekend with one final edition this week of Locked On Panthers. It's Friday, and it's time for the Weekly Friday Mailbag right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as we continue into off-season mode here on the show. But starting on July 18th, we will be back with our Monday through Friday schedule as the Carolina Panthers report to training camp down in Spartanburg on the campus of Wofford College. Go Terriers on July 26th. And start off practice on July 27th. Make sure to follow the show by subscribing to us over on YouTube, where you can watch every single episode, and you can also listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Odyssey, Stitcher, TuneIn, does not matter. You can find every episode of the Locked On Panthers podcast and all of the podcasts part of the Locked On Podcast Network there, wherever you find your podcasts. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, where every single Friday, like today, I answer your weekly Friday mailbag questions. You can either at me or DM me at Julian Council to participate on the weekly Friday mailbag. Not a ton of questions this week, which is totally fine. That means we'll just have a short and sweet show here on Locked On Panthers, and everyone can get on the road and hopefully be safe if you are traveling during this 4th of July period. And let's go ahead and start off with Renan, I believe is how I pronounce his name. He says, "Hey, Julian, love the show. Here is one for Friday." Thank you, Renan. He says, "I know you are not that big into fantasy football, but ESPN Plus just released an article on safest bets for every team. And one of their analysts, Joe Pisapia, never heard of him, said the Panthers didn't have any safe pick. I know CMC is far from safe, but what does this tell you about how underrated DJ Moore is? Is this only because we are a smaller market team, or is there something out there against the Panthers? Keep pounding." I don't think anyone's against the Carolina Panthers at all when evaluating them fantasy-wise. Christian McCaffrey, the last couple of years, prior to always getting injured, at least the last 2 years getting injured, was considered the top running back. I would still take Christian McCaffrey and cross my fingers and hope that he does not get injured. But it's not a safe bet because the last couple seasons, well, as we've talked about, he's only played 10 games. And during that period of time, the Carolina Panthers have been 10-23. They didn't win all the games that he played, but they've obviously missed Christian McCaffrey out there as they don't have a quarterback, and they need McCaffrey to really supplement the fact that they don't have a starting quarterback that they can rely on and that scares defenses. As far as DJ Moore, he doesn't score touchdowns. That's not on him. That's on the quarterback. And as long as the quarterback is in flux, yes, DJ puts out a lot of good yardage, but do you really want a wide receiver who doesn't score touchdowns? So I would say no. So no, I'm not big into talking about fantasy football because not really everyone wants to hear about people's fantasy teams. I can certainly always try and help you and lead you down the right path when it comes to your fantasy team. And I do play fantasy because I'm in this league with my friends and I want to quit, but I can't get out of it because everyone else has already quit, or a lot of people already have. And I don't know, I feel obligated to keep playing. So, yeah, I guess I kind of understand where we're coming when it comes to this offense. Like, there's no really safe bets at all. The quarterback's not a safe bet. McCaffrey, if he's healthy, is fantastic. There's no safe bet he's going to be healthy, and DJ Moore just doesn't score enough touchdowns. So I kind of understand where he's coming from there. Don't think there's any bias out there towards the Panthers because, honestly, why would anyone really be biased towards a team that hasn't been in the playoffs since 2017? All right, moving on now to Brandon, who asked me, did you see Bleacher Report article about the Carolina having one of the worst defenses next year? Then they went on to blame Sam. I don't know what question I'm going to ask. I'm just furious at all the hate next week. It's going to be special teams. Can't take the hate, man. LOL. So Brandon just really came here to vent. Didn't have much of a question at all. I did not see that article that you mentioned there. I don't see how the Panthers would have one of the worst defenses next season. Were they as good last year as they looked in the first couple, really the first half of the season? Probably not. They're not great against the run. The hope is now when you add in Damian Wilson, you have Shaq here and maybe even Frankie Louvu starting in that linebacker spot, that they can be better against the run. And Derek Brown has to step up this season. And Matt Ioannidis coming over after spending time with Washington. And even Yetur Gross-Matos is someone who could potentially set the edge. And that was one thing that Scott Fitterer talked about going into the offseason, that they wanted to find someone on the defensive line that could set the edge. I don't know if they have someone like that, but I think Gross-Matos might be able to fulfill that role. I just don't see with Dante Jackson back and J.C. Horn and Jeremy Chin. You add Xavier Woods. You have another first rounder in CJ Henderson. How is this going to be a defense that would be among the worst in the NFL this upcoming season? Would it be because like last season when they tapered off in large part because of injuries to the secondary? Dante, JC, Bouye had an injury. You also had Stephon Gilmore who got injured, where you're down to the Keith Taylors and the Rashawn Melvins. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about Keith Taylor. He certainly is a young prospect that could be a starter down the road here in Carolina. When you land on your fifth, sixth corners, then yeah, you're going to struggle defensively. And when you're out there all game long, like in the Minnesota game, because the offense was terrible, and was not a shining example of great D by Carolina that day against Kirk Cousins and that Vikings offense, but still, the Panthers offense didn't do anything all day long until the final 3 minutes of the game. And that was kind of what happened all season long, especially coming out of halftime, where you wondered what were they doing in there, passing out orange slices. Well, what was the game plan going into the third quarter? So I don't see how this can be one of the worst defenses. And if they want to question special teams, they brought in an all-pro punter and Johnny Hecker. Zane Gonzalez had a career year last year, and Chris Tabor, who's the new special teams coordinator, annually has top 10 special teams units. Don't worry about what they're saying out there. I mean, Bleacher Report, I mean, are they really even considered like a organization that you even care about, like as far as a publication? It's not like ESPN or CBS Sports or Sports Illustrated. It's Bleacher Report. Let's not get too caught up on what they have to say. All right, let's take a quick pause here, and then I'll come back and answer more of your questions here on the Weekly Friday Mailbag on Locked On Panthers. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this season of Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and the easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, let's get to the rest of your questions here on this edition of the Weekly Friday Mailbag. The mailbag will be gone next week as I will be on vacation, but we will be back on the 15th. So make sure to get more questions in as we were light this week, which is fine. This is your opportunity to participate with the show, and I'll answer whatever questions you guys send in to me. I always try to answer everyone's questions. So again, follow me on Twitter at Julian Council, either at me, but really just go ahead and DM me, and I will answer your questions here on the show. Moving on now to Lars, as we've had people in Canada. We got folks over in Scotland, Ireland, England, I think Brazil, Argentina that listen to the show. Add Germany to the list. And I wonder, and Lars, I got to DM you back because I want to know, did you become a Panther fan because of the whole Panther marketing deal that they have going on there in Germany, where eventually, like Tampa Bay this upcoming season, who's going to be playing the first NFL game, I believe, in Munich, the Panthers will, I think, maybe in 2023, be there. And if they're in Germany, I'm going. I didn't get to go to the London game a couple years ago at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I honestly wish it would have been at Wembley because that'd been really cool to go see that after watching so many games there over the years as being a Liverpool supporter. But if they're in Germany, I'm going. But Lars, thanks for your support. He says, hey, Julian, greetings from Germany, which is so cool that we have someone who listens to the show in Germany. He says, first of all, thanks for producing such a great podcast. I'm listening to it every free minute I have. Thank you, Lars, for your support. He says, back to my question. It's great to have Luke Kuechly back as a little part of the organization, but there are plenty of jobs where his skill set can help the organization more than being on the radio. In which job do you think he can help the organization the most in the future? The obvious choice, in my opinion, is the linebackers coach. That would be a good start if Luke Kuechly wanted to be a coach. And that's the thing that I've been saying. And I said this the other day when I talked about Luke joining the broadcast team for 7 games, 6 home games, and 1 home game in his hometown back in Cincinnati against the fake Queen City and the Bengals. When Luke retired, I just wanted Luke to go and take a break from football. And immediately he became a scout, which fine. Can't get away from it. I get it. That's what he wanted to do. But I just wanted him to go out there, find a river, and go fish for trout. That's what I wanted him to do for a year. Just stand out there and go fishing all the time. Don't worry about football. I saw him on ESPN recently on NFL Live. Yes, he's gone up to hang out in Buffalo and Washington with Ron Rivera and with Brandon Beane in Buffalo and Sean McDermott, some of his old friends here in Carolina. So it's been, there's thoughts. There was always thoughts of what Luke could do. He could be a GM. Could he be a scout? He's already done that. Could he be on TV? He's tried that out. Now he's going to do the whole radio thing. I think Luke Kuechly can do whatever he wants as it pertains to either broadcasting or being on the field football-wise as a coach or being in the booth as a GM. So for me, I just want to do what makes him happy. And clearly being around football makes him happy. And being in the booth to talk about the Carolina Panthers, I think that's great that we get to listen to him because it felt so premature that his career ended. Now, he did play 9 seasons. We understand health-wise and physically why he had to hang it up. It still just kind of sucks that we didn't get to see more of Luke Kuechly the last couple of seasons here in Carolina, especially as a team has not been very good. And we could certainly use him in the run game. So I don't know necessarily how he could help the organization the most. So we've seen already with Dan Morgan, who played linebacker here, who spent time in Seattle with Scott Fitterer and in Buffalo with Brandon Beane, that he's now an assistant general manager. And one day, I'm sure if they have success here in Carolina and considering where he's been, that he will get an opportunity to be a GM in the National Football League, which would be great for Dan. Maybe that's the Luke Kuechly path. TV-wise, I did tune in when I saw him on ESPN. Really, when guys step up, they have it. Like with Drew Brees, didn't have it. Tony Romo had it immediately. And yes, you can be coached. It takes time, obviously, for that. I would love to see Luke Kuechly in a personnel role within the organization if he wants to be a part of the organization in a manner that helps him on the field. I would love to see that one day, Luke Kuechly being an assistant general manager, being a player personnel director, whatever role that they think would make sense for him to help out in Carolina. And that doesn't have to be in Carolina. He can go anywhere else, wherever he wants to be, wherever makes him happy. That's all I really want for Luke Kuechly. And I just want him also to be happy and whole, as the concussion certainly worry me about his long-term health, as you know, that is obviously a concern down the road. You know, praying for him, glad to have him back. That's all that really matters to me at this point in time. So appreciate you listening, Lars, and for the question, man. Now moving on to, I believe you said your name was Coke. I hope I don't maybe you missed an R. Was it Coker? I don't know. But going to Coke's question, and this is not Coca-Cola. I said for the Friday mailbag, what are reasonable expectations for CJ Henderson this year? And am I crazy for still being optimistic about him? No, you're not crazy. When Scott Fitterer traded for CJ Henderson, at the time, after J.C. Horn went down in the second half of that Week 3 game on the road Thursday Night Football against the Texans, it felt very reactionary. It's like, all right, you just lost your first-round pick who was awesome in those first 3 games. I think he only gave up 1 reception and 5 targets for 8 yards in the first 3 games as a starter here in Carolina. And he didn't get to go up against really any top-notch wide receivers, which will be interesting to see how he plays this season, if he can stay healthy and go up against some of the top guys in the NFL. But still, J.C. Horn was supposed to be a solid starter for you the entire season, and we didn't get to see him. So when he went down, it felt like they were bringing in CJ Henderson to try and play that role. He played a little bit of that Dallas game, Week 1. It was kind of in the way Cam Newton talked about. He was thrown out there 2 days after signing. Pretty similar with CJ Henderson. Although when he came in, there was AJ Bouye here. There was Dante Jackson. They had depth where he wasn't called upon to be a starter day one. And now he's still not going to be asked to be the top corner or even the second guy. He's going to probably play the nickel cornerback role. He's a top 10 pick back in 2020. And Scott Fitterer said that the move was for the future. It wasn't for the now, it was for the future. And people were asking, I honestly did a show that day, be like, Panthers going to win now mode. Because to me, it looked like, okay, let's go get a corner because our corner just went down. Now, the Gilmore move was probably more so the win now mode deal, even though we didn't get to see a ton of Stephon as he limited himself as far as snaps until after the bye week when he was ready to go. And then once that happened, he only played like 2 or 3 games, like basically the majority of snaps before going down for the rest of the season. Yes, still be excited about CJ Henderson. Like with Derek Brown, this is a very important year for him as the 5th-year option is coming up this next offseason, 2023 in May. The Panthers have to decide with him and Derek Brown if they want to exercise those options. He has to show something this year that proves that he is worth investing in. And if he doesn't, then it's going to be a very easy decision for Scott Fitterer and the Carolina Panthers. Same thing with Derek Brown. He has to show that he's worth being invested in. because that's a lot of money. And the last two seasons, I guess not the last two seasons, but yeah, the last two seasons, they've gone out and they've done the obvious things. So Brian Burns this offseason and last year, DJ Moore, and then, the whole Sam Darnold thing. So I don't think reasonable expectations are for him to start at nickel corner. Like, he needs to beat out Miles Hartsfield. Having Hartsfield as someone who's come in, started as a UDFA at Ole Miss, you love that. But if Henderson, you trade for him and he's a first-round talent, that's the guy who needs to be starting at nickel corner, not Miles Hartsfield. So him starting as a nickel, that should be the reasonable expectation for CJ Henderson this upcoming season, in my opinion. Final question now coming from Steven. He says, how do you feel about DJ Moore's value after seeing all the wide receiver deals signed this offseason? Thanks for giving us something to listen to during the offseason. Keep up the good work. Yeah, thank you, Steven, and you're welcome, man. Yeah, hold on. I did see I saw a tweet the other day because when who the wide receiver, when Terry McLaurin finally signed his deal up in Washington, someone had given a breakdown of all the wide receiver contracts from this offseason. And of course I can't find it. I think it was the My Sports Update guy, Ari Myrov, who's now with PFF as an insider, even though he doesn't report any, even though he doesn't break any news. That was shade. My bad, Ari. Let's see. Terry McLaurin. This is such bad podcast right now. Okay. I'm just trying to find if I can find the tweet, because the breakdown of it all, of what these guys made this offseason, is insane. I can't find it, but I think they got DJ on a good deal. When you look at what happened with AJ Brown getting traded, what you saw with Tyreek Hill made, what you've seen from, we're going to see what happens with DK. But yeah, $20 million a year, that's not bad at all. Because let's see, it was 3 years, 60 something. That obviously that makes sense. I can't find my notes, but 3 years, 60 something. I think they got a good deal for DJ Moore. And really, to me, it wasn't necessarily the price, as you're asking about value. It was that there was no drama. Mike Vrabel was saying, as long as I'm here in Tennessee, AJ Brown's going to be a Titan. What, a couple days later? It was like a week later, he's an Eagle. McLaurin, that worked out. But in Tyreek Hill, that was just something that was weird. He was gone. Like, the fact there's been no drama when it comes to contracts here, that's a good thing. Now, content-wise, it would be accepted because there'd be something to talk about. But as far as what we've had to deal with, I'm happy about that. So I think it's a good value they got it from DJ Moore. Actually, just got as I was recording, did get another question. This one from Kendrick, who says, really appreciate the content that you put out for us, my guy. Real pleasure to hear your perspective on the team. If you could do a sit-down all-access interview of anyone in the front office or coaching staff, who would you choose and what would that conversation cover? Bonus question, which Panther player did you irrationally believe in that disappointed you? My answer is 100% David Geddes. Oh, my God. First one, if I could interview anybody, well, Steve Wilkes is the first name that came to mind. I would love to talk to Steve Wilkes just about what happened in Arizona. Like, he has the lawsuit that he's joined with Brian Flores. I'm talking suing the NFL on having alleged discriminatory hiring process. So I want to talk to him about just his experience with that, and having been here in Charlotte, what's it like to be a hometown guy now coaching for the Carolina Panthers, having started at Johnson C. Smith. He'd be someone I would want to talk to if I could talk to anybody over there in that organization. And then irrational confidence in as far as a Panther player. I don't really feel like I ever get too excited about anybody. I love Derek Brown coming out of Auburn. So maybe Derek Brown, but I wasn't thinking he was going to be a Hall of Famer. I never really said that. I don't think I really have an answer for you there. There's got to be somebody who just didn't pan out. I didn't think Whitehead was going to be that awful. I was never someone who was who's calling Kyle Allen the franchise. I was sitting there saying how he couldn't beat out Kyle Postman, De'Aaron King when he was at Houston. I don't really have an answer for this one, to be honest with you. I cannot think of a name of someone I was like, yeah, this guy's going to be incredible, and then they're terrible. And it's one of those things, too, when we'll get there in training camp, it's like the Hard Knocks effect where they spend so much time focusing on a guy who's at the end of the roster who might not make the team. And it's like, why do we just waste half an episode on this dude's story when he's not going to make the team? And if he does, he's only going to be a special teams guy. That's what kind of feel like happens. Like Cole Luke was one of those guys. I'm sure people are like, yeah, Cole Luke was going to be that dude. Now in Washington, he's found a role, which is great for him. But again, same staff, Ron Rivera. All right, let's take one more quick pause. I'll come back and wrap up the show here on Locked On Panthers. All right, back here on Locked On Panthers. Going to wrap up this edition of the show. Let y'all know what's going on next week. So I will be off on vacation. Fingers crossed that the Carolina Panthers don't make a move for a quarterback. I know that's going to happen. Like as soon as I leave town, that they're going to trade for Baker Mayfield. And if that happens, then I will be back here and I will do shows all next week, which I don't want to do, but I'll do it because that's what I'm signed up to do here. But either way, if nothing happens like that, nothing breaking, there will be our roster breakdowns next week. So we'll do 3 positions a day. We'll have quarterbacks. We'll have running backs and wide receivers on Monday on 4th of July. And you can get to it whenever you can. Then on Wednesday, we'll have offensive line, tight ends, and special teams. And on Friday, we'll save the best for last, talk about the defense, D-line, linebackers, and secondary. So that will be all of next week. So Monday, skill positions, the linemen and tight end kind of goes with that, special teams, and then on Friday, the entire defense. So make sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube for that. Check us out on all the podcasting platforms to be able to listen to those shows. So those are already recorded in the can for you. You'll notice I'm wearing the exact same shirt the entire time. So do not send any comments being like, does this guy like ever shower? Come on, like don't do that. Don't do me like that. So that's what's coming up next week on the show. So no weekly Friday mailbag next week, but it's okay. Still follow me, still at me, still DM me. If you have ever a question, like just get them in. Like get them in now. Because I mean, we were light this week, only had 6, which is fine. Not a big deal. But you get those questions into me and I will get to them on the 15th. So the next 14 days, if you got a question, you got multiple questions, send them in and we'll have a big mailbag edition in 2 weeks time. But in the meantime, y'all travel safely, like be seriously, like stay safe out there. Don't blow your hands off of fireworks. Don't be stupid. But enjoy time with family. If you're going on vacation, of course, enjoy that time to get away and of course, keep pounding and I will talk to y'all on Monday.